You look fine, darling. Rugged.
Yeah, I look like Richard Dreyfuss in Jaws.
Richard Dreyfuss. Richard Dreyfuss.
That's the French way of saying it, because I am bilingual.
That fucking French degree really worked out well, doesn't it?
Anyway, people are listening to this, you know.
Are we on?
Yeah,
Are
we're
we
on. We're on. Hello, gazers.
Hello, gazers.
Sorry, we were just nattering away to ourselves there.
Nattering away. Didn't realise you'd come into the room or we'd come into your room.
Yeah,
So,
someone's coming into something anyway.
Well, hello.
Hello.
Here's hoping.
Yes.
You talk, 'cause I'm a bit giddy. I didn't realise we were on.
Okay, we are the Problematic Gaze. I'm Dave Moore.
I'm Dr. Liana.
Yes.
Each episode, we take a piece of pop culture and examine it through the problematic lens and ask ourselves the question, could you get away with it today? And if not, why not? And what that says about society and culture then and now.
And before we take a deep dive into our chosen topic, we'll look at the news events of the day. We'll also look at the TV and film cultural landscape, and we'll look at the pop charts just to put our chosen topic into context. Got it right this time.
I nearly high-fived you there.
Yeah.
I realised I don't
High
have
five.
everything. High-five.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was rubbish. There
Come
we
on.
go.
Come on. Do you think there's going to come a point where we hate saying that and to
Yeah.
each other and just can't bear
Yeah.
the sound of them? You can't hear me now. How long do you reckon it'll take before we get to that stage?
I'm already a bit sick of it. But we have to do it for our new listeners. And hello, new listeners.
Hello, new listeners.
To anybody who is new to us from our review in the Independent.
Only the Independent. Get your glass, love. Let's have a little toast to that. Independent.
Independent.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, we're on the vino to celebrate. I mean,
darling.
we don't need much to celebrate anything, really, do we?
No. But we're very grateful for that.
Yes,
We weren't
so-
expecting it. And new listeners are arriving. So welcome
Yes.
to our world.
Yes, thank you, Katharina and your Lanthy. Not that we're blowing our own trumpets or
Do
anything.
it. Blow it. Blow
Freaking
it.
ourselves off.
Blow it.
That's the Independent, that's the Radio Times, that's Podcast Rex.
Listen, I'd like to mention we've had a gift. Do you remember on our episode on Brass Eye that we would accept gifts?
Yes, because it was our birthday coming up.
So my friend Mel
From Mel and Kim.
from Mel and Kim. Hello, Mel. I know you're listening. Put the gin down. Mel was one of my old uni friends. And as long as I've known your husband, which is a good 20 odd years now, we'd always call Mel from Mel and Kim. Do you want to take over at this point? Because whenever...
So whenever I've heard them talking about Mel from Mel and Kim, I just naturally assume, being the person I am, like normal, that it was Mel from Mel and Kim, because obviously you and my husband both have showbiz connections. So why would I not assume that every time he talked about Mel from Mel and Kim, it was Mel from Mel and Kim?
Yeah. You only just realised how recently...
About 6 months ago. When I said, oh, you mean Mel from Mel and Kim? And you went, it's not from Mel and Kim. I was like, but you literally said for the last 10 years, it's Mel from Mel and Kim. I mean, gazers, help me out here. Wouldn't you jump to that same conclusion? Anyway, Mel
has given us a gift to congratulate us on our Radio Times appearance. She's given us one each. So here's for you. This is for you.
Okay. Oh, it's a box.
It's a box.
A white
It's a
cardboard
of
box,
delights.
just describing for our gazers
Thank you.
who are listening to us in the traditional podcast way.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Oh, it's a mug.
It's a mug.
Oh, it's a mug with a naked man on it.
That's a medieval diagram of the human body.
Oh.
The one I've got is various permutations of people having farts. Medieval art is some of the weirdest shit you will ever see in your life.
Wow. He's got all sorts of daggers in his eye, in his heart, and up his armpits, in his groin area, through his leg and his feet. Oh, thank you, Mel, for that.
Quirky.
Quirky. Yeah, but really nice, and they were really touched. Thank you.
But not champagne, so moving on.
That's okay. We'll put champagne in it.
Yeah, we can. We can.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Mel. Okay, moving forward.
Moving forward. So what are we looking at today, Dave?
Gazers, because it continues to be Pride Month, we're continuing our Pride theme, celebrating all things queer. So today we're going to be looking at Paris is Burning, which was a documentary released in 1990, but set throughout the tail end of the 80s.
Yes. Filmed throughout the 80s, clearly. Not released in Britain until 2007.
Wow.
Yeah, but we're going with the 1990 date. What's your relationship with it?
I watched it about 5 years ago.
Right.
Prior to that, I had knowledge of it primarily because it's about voguing. It's about the extravagant dances and the competitions they used to have in the New York drag ballrooms. Ballrooms meaning any kind of place where they could stage this spectacle. So yeah, I knew about it because obviously, we'll talk about the whole Madonna related thing about Vogue, etc. And I saw that she had attended the premiere of Paris is Burning back in 1990. So that was the only thing I knew about it.
Right.
And then watched it about 5 years ago. Spoiler alert, adored it. And then watched it again last night through entirely different eyes, actually.
Yes.
So much more out of it this time round than watching it last time round. What about you?
I've never seen it. It was one of those kind of gay things that you have on the periphery and you hear it mentioned every so often, but I'd never seen it until a couple of days ago when I watched it for this. If any listeners have ever seen any kind of permutation of RuPaul's Drag Race, you will absolutely know what Paris is Burning is about, because I was astonished actually about how much RuPaul has brought that very specific ball culture into the mainstream.
Yeah.
So you hear now people talking about reading people, sashaying, icons, all this stuff. It's quite amazing, actually.
Yeah. And if anyone's seen the drama Pose, that is very, very directly related to Paris is Burning.
And we watched it on YouTube, which is amazing. We've linked to the version you should watch, because there's another version online which I started to watch, was in black and white. And
yes, I did
Sam
too.
kept cutting out, and I was like, this is a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
Before we take a deep dive into Paris is Burning, should we cross over to the news desk and see what was happening to the UK in 1990? Why are you laughing?
I'm not laughing. I'm just trying to focus on you. I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. Just because I'm not wearing my glasses because of our YouTube and socials.
Because vanity.
Because of vanity. Even though I'm sat here scruffy looking with a beard like Richard Dreyfuss in Jaws.
Can we mention where you're going tomorrow?
I'm going to a wedding. Yes. I'm not going to tell you who.
It's a celebrity though, isn't it?
It's a celebrity
wedding.
Celebrity/footballer wedding.
Is it a footballer? The groom? Wow.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm looking forward to the most?
What?
Apart from watching two people.
The hotel room. It all being finished, I can just get back to the hotel room and kick my shoes off and fucking lie down. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. Is that what it is?
And the food.
The food will be amazing.
Apart from watching two people cement and...
Oh, shut up.
declare their love for each other. That element I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Gorgeous setting.
Yeah.
Can't reveal where, obviously, for security purposes.
Yes. Yeah.
But yes, that's what we're doing this weekend. So I shall report back.
Yeah, I am in control of PG Manor this weekend.
You are?
Yeah, in control of the dogs, the guard dogs.
Yes.
And, I might have a few boys over and see what happens to
You
them.
better bloody not do, because I'm telling you.
If you get anything on that rug...
If you get anything on that rug, but also if the dogs go missing...
They won't go missing. They'll be on eBay, but they won't go missing. Speaking of rugs, that rug. Sorry, I've had a glass of wine now. The truth is coming out. Yeah. Can I just say, listeners, the last time I was here, I'd injured myself in the garden, hadn't realised. I'd nicked the back of my ankle, and there was blood coming down my foot. It wasn't like spurting out. It had dried. And I came into the kitchen, and I said, oh, look, I've injured myself. And what were the first things you said? Florence Nightingale. What was the first thing you said?
You better not have got it on the bloody rug.
Yeah.
Guys out there, if anyone's got nice rugs in their home,
don't let Lee around.
Don't let Lee around. Wandering around the garden willy-nilly in his bare feet and comes in with a bloodied foot. Any self-respecting gazer out there would immediately think about the rug rather than your injured foot. Anyway,
Crashing
moving
on,
forward.
Thank you.
Moving forward.
This is what the future's like, isn't it?
Let's go to the news desk.
Let's go to the news desk. We did briefly look at 1990 news in our Justify My Love episode, but given that was at the very beginning when I was in a wardrobe and you were, Yes. We'll have another look because there's some big events.
This time we are at the news desk, yes, shuffling papers. Paris is Burning was released on September the 13th, 1990. That was the Canadian release date.
Yes, I think it was a film festival.
Fine, so that was when it was first brought out.
Yes.
Okay, so here are the news events for 1990. On the 29th of January, Lord Justice Taylor publishes his report on the Hillsborough disaster, which claimed the lives of 95 Liverpool FC supporters on the 15th of April from last year. He recommends that all top division stadiums are all-seater by 1994, and the rest of the Football League follows suit by 1999.
Well, I mean, Hillsborough was a horror show. Do you remember? Did you watch it unfolding?
No, I remember listening to it on the radio, actually.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, hideous. And then what ensued with the Sun newspaper and all the court cases and The poor families trying to fight
Yeah,
for justice for all
absolutely.
those years.
Yeah.
Just horrendous.
For those who don't know, the Sun newspaper very quickly ran an article basically victim blaming the supporters who got crushed. And if you don't know what Hillsborough is, there was a match final going on at football and these fans had been pushed into this wedge. Now, they'd all had this not barbed wire, but cages in front. So there was no escape for them because hooliganism had been a real problem in the 80s.
Yes.
And there was a crush. 95 people died on camera. It was just unbelievable. And those people just had to get justice. And you could really see the establishment closing in to kind of create a narrative, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, it was hideous.
Yeah.
Another big year, I mean, this is a big year actually, 1990. On the 9th of March, 37 people were arrested and 10 police officers injured in Brixton during riots against the new poll tax. At the end of the month, on the 31st, poll tax riots in London as 200,000 people converge on the capital and then kick off.
Remember all them police horses, charging, and it was just chaos, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was like an old school riot in the sense that it really felt like something was changing or something was under threat, to watch it. 200,000 people just absolutely losing it because this poll tax had been brought in. Yeah,
but it was considered deeply unfair, wasn't it? It wasn't proportionate to your wealth or your status class.
Yeah. We've discussed this, but I remember my parents getting their bill and suddenly it'd gone from the old council tax charge, it like triples. We were a working class family. My dad was a retired milkman by that point, there was no pensions as a retired milkman. Yeah. And how are you supposed to find that money? So, huge riots. In lighter news, the 5th of April, the first Aldi store opens in the UK. Now, I love an Aldi.
Do you love
I have
an
to
Aldi?
say, transformed my shopping.
Well, we haven't got an Aldi or a Lidl where I live.
No, you're too mainstream here, John.
Just a Waitrose and a Sainsbury's and a Tesco Metro.
And an Asda. Oh, don't lie, you've got an Asda.
We've got an Asda, and that is where I do a lot of my shopping because it's very handy. It's just around the corner. Obviously not revealing details of where PG Manor is. But yeah, I do love an Aldi and a Lidl. I love a bargain. I'm a northerner, you know what I mean?
Quality's very good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not
There
being
we go.
sponsored by...
No,
maybe they will.
Aldi, if you're listening.
Yeah, we're really happy to whore ourselves out for Aldi.
Yeah, we accept vouchers.
We do. Oh my God, could you imagine? That's the kind of gift we want, isn't it?
Oh, I should just point out this point that if anybody has listened to some of our past episodes, we did agree to an advert which kind of ran for a few days.
Has it ran already?
It's run already. Now, our podcast service provider who we send our podcast to and they distribute it everywhere, do keep sending suggestions about adverts.
Yeah.
The one that we chose was with Cynthia Nixon, so I thought that was quite good. It's for kind of like a dramatic podcast.
Yeah.
Just had another suggestion, a reverend doing a Christian podcast.
You're joking.
Yeah. Do they know what our subject matter and our explicit content's about?
Oh my God.
I know we do need to add to our pot of 34 cents that we
34 cents we've made.
Yeah,
Come
we've
on.
made it.
Oh my God. I had to cancel the whole Dr. Singer banner order, obviously. It was a bit of a nightmare.
But from small acorns, as we say.
Absolutely.
This time next year, Rodney.
We'll be at the Royal Albert Hall.
No, that's in January, darling. We've only got...
Fuck. 7 months.
Still got a heavy pencil on that.
Heavy pencil. Is that a technical term?
Yes.
Is that a trade term?
Yes.
Is it?
Heavy pencil.
Heavy pencil. I
Yeah.
like that.
Not quite confirmed yet, but gazers, if you are listening, please tell your friends to listen to us.
Yeah. Anyway, crashing on.
On the 19th of May, British Agricultural Minister John Gummer publicly feeds a hamburger to his 5-year-old daughter to counter rumours about the spread of bovine spongiform encephalopathy.
Well done. That was
That
good.
was the first time. I didn't have to do it 5 times like I normally do, then edit it out. And its transmission to humans. 30th of May, France prohibits British beef and live cattle imports as a precaution against fears of BSE being spread.
Yeah. Imagine being that kid now. Yeah, then France, I remember there was a bit of jingoism in the papers when France said, oh, they're not taking our beef anymore. It was, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But who wants a load of old diseased beef coming over? Oh, no, there's no connection at all. Yeah, later. Sorry, everybody. Now, this is a big year politically. On the 13th of November, Geoffrey Howe, he's the deputy Conservative leader, makes a dramatic resignation speech in the House of Commons, attacking the Prime Minister, and especially her hostility towards the European community. A day later, Michael Heseltine will announce that he's running to be leader of the Tory party. 6 days later, she fails to win an outright majority at the Tory party. You know, that silly competition they do in that weird cult way. And the 22nd of November, Maggie announces her resignation.
Now, that Geoffrey Howe speech was considered to be the death knell, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
That was when the tide had really turned and she was on a slippery slope from that point
poll
on.
tax riots were the thing that kind of ignited it. But you're right. Yeah, this was it.
That was the first signifier that the party was starting to turn on her.
Yeah, and she's out.
And she started beefing on her way out, didn't she?
Yeah, and she's been Prime Minister for 11 years. I was there from my grandfather. We've got the special announcement, and it was Margaret Thatcher resigned, and he just looked at me because he was a union man. He used to work on the railways. He looked at me and he went, "Yes." Felt like an end of an era, but it really felt something seismic had changed.
Yeah, she's so polarising, is Margaret Thatcher, isn't she? I mean, there are people who continue to worship her and her policies, but there are others who absolutely despise her.
Yeah, where I'm from, there's a lot of mining communities and pits. So when I was a kid, the miners' strike, when it was going on, when I was 11 or 12, was all around me. So where I'm from, she's not that welcome, funnily enough.
On the 1st of December, Channel tunnel workers from the United Kingdom and France meet 40 metres beneath the English Channel seabed, establishing the first land connection between the United Kingdom and the mainland of Europe for around 8,000 years.
Wow.
But what was it 8,000 years ago then?
Connected by land.
But only 8,000 years ago?
Yeah, it feels a bit recent, doesn't it?
Yeah. You sure that's not 8 million years?
Hold that thought. Let's fact check it, darling. Fact check has been actioned, and it's true. It was only 8,000 years. 6,500 BCE, so that's 8,000 and a half years ago, there was Doggerland, which was a thin strip of land which still connected Britain with mainland Europe. So you could actually walk over. But then there's a massive landslide in Norway, which causes a tsunami, which obliterates the last of the land channel. So
Bet that was Donald Trump's fault.
Probably.
Well, thanks for fact checking.
Welcome. I mean, that's the fact check department in full swing, I have to say.
Good.
Yeah, banks of computers, you know, rows upon rows upon rows of technicians beavering away to ensure we are 100% accurate, darling.
And that's why people need to leave a review.
Yeah, it is.
Because we need the money.
Yeah.
To pay for all these computers and fact checking people. They don't come cheap, you know.
They don't come cheap.
No. Let's have a look at the top films Paris is Burning landed in this landscape. So, let's have a countdown, shall we?
Countdown. The highest grossest films of the year. Number 10, When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what she's having.
Many a times I've been sat across the dinner table from you and you started channeling it in a Meg Ryan.
Can't help myself.
Put me right off.
Slavering over a dessert.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Gremlins 2, The New Batch, is at number 9.
There's a bit of a double at number 8 and number 7, because at number 8 we've got Back to the Future Part 2, and then number 7 we've got Back to the Future Part 3. I don't think I saw either of them.
I liked 2 better.
Right.
I didn't like it 3 when they went back to the Western era.
I think that's why I didn't watch it, because I'm not that into Westerns. Yeah.
I do like a Back to the Future, though.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, back in the day, in the 80s, went out to Universal Studios. You see Jaws coming towards you. Then you see the Psycho House, Wisteria Lane, which was then Elm Street from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Of course.
And then you went through the square, Back to the Future Square.
Right, where the clock on the town hall.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Have I told this story before?
No. Don't like I'm glazing over, sorry.
Can't remember. But then you kind of like go on your little truck, you know, your little trundle truck that goes through all the backlots and stuff. And you know, on the top of the clock tower in Back to the Future, because he slides down, doesn't he? Creates the electricity that sends Marty back to the future in the first one.
Yeah.
And either side of the clock are these two kind of like panther-like statues. And when we drove past the lot, those panther-like statues were actually on the floor.
Right.
And I touched one of them.
How did that feel?
It was brilliant.
Was it
I was a little
polystyrene?
kid. I was a little kid.
Yeah. I think that Town Hall Square was the same one they used in Gremlins as well. I'm
was
fairly
it?
certain, yeah.
Right.
Fact check.
Fact check.
It's not that important, is it?
Now, number 6, Ghostbusters 2.
What's happening in Ghostbusters 2? I can't remember it.
It's just a bit of a rehash, really.
Is it? I mean, I was 17 by that point. I wasn't really going to be going for Ghostbusters 2. At number 5, Total Recall.
Great film.
Great film.
Yeah.
At number 3, Look Who's Talking. I mean, that was revolutionary at the time, wasn't it? Because the baby was talking. Did the baby's mouth move? I don't think it did it? We would do that today. Didn't do it then.
God, Hinge and Bracket.
Honestly.
2 old nanas have come out again.
Oh, never
Wasn't there a
mind.
rumour that you could see a ghost in the back of one of the shots? That was the big rumour at
Was
the
there?
time. Yeah.
Didn't hear that rumour.
Some of our gazers will have.
It's like the munchkin who hangs himself in The Wizard of Oz.
No.
The urban myth was that when Dorothy gets to Oz and she's greeted by all the munchkins, first of all, you can see one of them hanging themselves in the back of the shot in the woods. It's all bollocks.
Yeah.
But they were treated appallingly badly. Wouldn't be surprised.
As was Judy Garland, by all accounts.
Was it ever thus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 2, one of my favourites. Anyone who hasn't listened to our Pretty Woman episode,
Gird your loins.
Gertie Lyons Gazers, because it's one of the episodes that we disagreed quite strongly about.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
So
Yeah.
number 2, Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman.
Love her. I love Julie. I love Richard.
I love Julia. I love Richard, just not in this film.
Okay.
Number 1, the film that did more for pottery than anything else, it's Ghost with friend of the pod, Demi Moore.
Yes, quite phallocentric scene, that wasn't it?
Yes, it
Got
was.
everyone's blood pumping.
I mean, it's very erotic, isn't it?
Aye.
Highly erotically charged. But I mean, I just think if it had been trying, you take this splodge of clay, just spin it around, losing its shape, shit everywhere, you know. Wouldn't be the hotness of Patrick and Demi.
No, it was all about Whoopi, that film, for me.
I loved that film. Maybe we need to have Ghost because we might have a complete about turn watching it with problematic eyes.
I don't know if there's anything problematic about Ghosts. I just think it's quite a sweet film.
You're probably right.
Oh, there's a ghost in here. There's a phantom phone ringing somewhere. Who that is? Oh, can you hear me, Patrick?
Is it you, Doris Stokes? Right, pop pickers, should we see what was in the top 20 of the music charts on the 9th of September 1990 when this film was released?
Let's do it. This is the UK charts, yeah.
UK charts. How confident about this are you?
Very confident.
I am as
I
well.
think this is the time when I was getting now that's what I call music.
Yes.
So-and-so.
Yeah.
Starting to take an interest, develop my music tastes.
Yeah.
Which kind of started and stopped with Madonna, but there you go.
This was exactly the time I was getting into Karen Carpenter. So maybe we might not know as much as we think.
Finger on the pulse.
Yeah, God. We usually start at number 20, but I will have to point out number 21, because at number 21, going down, is Can You Party by Jive Bunny and the Master Mixers. What a weird phenomena Jive Bunny was, wasn't it?
It really was.
Yeah. For those listeners who don't know Jive Bunny, it was like 1940s and 1950s singles mixing like 5 or 6 songs at the time in the guise of this Jive Bunny.
Yeah.
And they were huge. It was...
Yeah, I mean, there were several number ones. Yeah, it was all kind of Glenn Miller type stuff and, various eras, just kind of raping and pillaging any music they could just to make a bit of cash. And why not?
Why not? But at the same time, it was just, you got sick of it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, and it was that stupid cartoon bunny.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
I like bunnies, but crashing on. Thankfully, Jive Bunny has not been like shaky and has not disgraced our charts. Right, off you pop, number 20.
Listen to Your Heart, Roxette, Flying High in the 90s, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were in the Pretty Woman soundtrack, speaking of which.
Of course.
Not with this
yes.
song, but it must have been Love.
Must have been Love. Yeah, that's probably it, isn't it? Number 19, Cliff Richard is still in the charts with Silhouettes.
Just gloss over that one. Number 18, End of the World, Sonia,
Liverpool.
If anyone's not seen the French and Saunders skit on Sonia, Google it.
Cover of a 50s song. Sonia's career on the wane by that point. She will represent us in Eurovision. But yeah, this is Sonia at the end of the Stockhaken and Waterman period of her career, also known as the only period of her career.
Hi, Sonia, come on the pod.
Number 17, Let's Get Naked in the Rain by Blue Pearl. That's a great song.
Fantastic song, classic. Number 16, Suicide Blonde, In Excess.
Did you have a thing for Michael Hutchins?
Well, not necessarily. You know what I'm like about shaggy-haired rockers? It's the same vein as Bob Geldof in the Boomtown
Oh,
Rats.
not smart enough. No.
Fantastic band, I thought.
Yes.
And actually, around this time when I went to see Janet Jackson in Birmingham,
Yes.
we were wandering around the Birmingham NEC and these fire doors were open and me and my friend walked in and it was In Excess rehearsing for their concert a few days later.
Wow.
No security.
No. Well, when I first moved to London in 95, I'd been there about 2 weeks, walking down Oxford Street. Who do I see? Paul Yates and Michael Hutchins.
Go.
Back in the days when they could walk freely around.
Yeah, that was the story.
Tragedy, that.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, here's your girl at number 15, Black Cat by Janet Jackson.
Yes, this was
Yeah.
about the 7th or 8th single from a hugely popular album, Rhythm Nation 1814.
Right.
Yeah, Black Cat's great. She wrote that song herself, all by herself.
Oh, good girl, Janet.
Well done, Janet.
Well done, Janet. Listeners, you can't say this, but just leave the glasses on while we're doing this. The glasses come on, they go off, they come on, they go off.
I'm trying to deny that I'm going completely blind.
I mean, it's on the social media videos anyway, the specs, so
Yeah.
you might as well just own them for the
Okay,
chart.
I'll own the specs. Okay, fine.
Some of us don't need them, of course.
Yeah, well, we've already talked about
Reading.
how you're getting older and eyes correcting
Number
themselves.
14, please.
Number 14, Living in the Light, Karen Wheeler.
From Soul to Soul.
From Soul to Soul.
Yeah.
Solo effort there.
Don't Be a Fool.
All right.
That's number 13. Don't Be a Fool by Loose Ends.
Don't know what that is.
Means nothing.
Number 12, Praying for Time, George Michael.
Georgie M.
God bless George.
A Groovy Train, The Farm at number 11.
yeah.
I like that song. I quite liked it.
Do you often get on the groovy train?
All the time. Every Friday night in the privacy of my own kitchen.
Number 10, Jason Donovan, Rhythm of the Rain, another cover.
Another cover. I mean, you can really tell when Stockaking and Waterman start to get bored of their acts, don't they? Just start throwing covers at them.
Well, there's literally just money for old rope, isn't it?
Literally. Yeah. Number 9, Mariah Carey with Vision of Love.
This was her breakout
Was it?
song, wasn't it? Yes, this was the start of La Carey. I'm not sure how I feel about Mariah Carey. I've never been a big fan, but she's quite inoffensive to me, and I do like some of her songs.
Yes,
I like
me
fantasy.
too. Me too.
That's a good
I
song.
just can't be done with all that going up and down, up and down, around. Probably because I was getting into Karen Carpenter at the time. It's like, can you not just keep the note the same and sustain it beautifully?
Vocal wanking.
Vocal wanking. New Kids on the Block still knocking about with Tonight.
Didn't do it for me.
Not me.
I was more Bros.
Oh, neither. Again, Carpenters and Dusty Springfield.
Okay, number 7, The Space Jungle, Adamski.
Number 6, Betty Boo. Where are you, baby? I loved a bit of Betty Boo. Loved a bit of Betty Boo. Yeah, she was very into Emma Peel, so I was into Betty Boo as well.
Number 5, What Time Is Love, featuring the Children of the Revolution. KLF. Loved a bit of KLF.
So did I.
Yeah, Last Train to Trans Central and all that.
All of it, yeah. 4 Bacharach and David songs by Deacon Blue at number 4, to which I ask, why?
Why? Number 3.
Oh, God.
No. A lot of covers.
Lot of covers.
Including this one, Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny Yellow Polka Dot Bikini by Bomb Ballerina, which was basically Timmy Mallet, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
Timmy Mallet and twins.
Was
The
it?
Blonde twins, yeah. He's a funny man, Timmy Mallet, wasn't he?
Yeah, but by all accounts, quite a nice guy.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
I have actually met Timmy Mallet.
Have
before.
you?
Yeah.
What was he like?
That sounds like the beginning of quite a sinister story, but
Yes,
it wasn't.
it does.
I was a waiter in a restaurant and he was there and he asked me for some orange juice. That was it.
As celebrity stories go, that's up there.
That was one of my early brushes with fame.
Wow, thanks. I feel edified. Good. Number 2. Well, number 2 is an outright classic. Groove is in the Heart by D-Light. I mean, that song is still iconic, isn't it? Should we see what's number 1?
Yeah, okay, don't let us down, charts. Come on. Oh, okay, hang on. Before we do it, do you think it's going to be a cover?
Probably.
Okay.
Or from a film.
Right.
I bet it's going to be The Righteous Brothers because Ghost.
Do you reckon?
I think so. Let's have a look.
Yeah. Number 1, The Joker, Steve Miller Band. Well, that's from an advert, isn't it?
Yes,
That's
it is
a
from an
popular
advert,
song.
yeah.
Can you remember what it was for?
Can't remember.
Well, that
Probably
works
jeans.
then.
Probably jeans. It was always Levi's at this point.
Or
using
beer.
those on. Yeah. Not offensive.
No.
Quite a good chart. Yeah, and you were right. We knew a lot of those.
Yeah, we did, and it kind of sets the scene that Paris is Burning fell into.
Yes, indeed it does. And speaking of, should we have a little deep dive into Paris is Burning? So, Dave, would you like to tell us a little bit about Paris is Burning?
So, Paris is Burning is a 1990 American documentary film directed by Jenny Livingston. Filmed in the mid to late 80s, it chronicles the ball culture of New York City and the African American, Latino, gay, and transgender communities involved in it. Critics consider the film to be an invaluable documentary of the end of the golden age of New York City drag balls and a thoughtful exploration of race, class, gender, and sexuality in America. And in 2016, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically significant. So Paris is Burning, it conjures up this image of New York from around about 1987 to 1989, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the ball culture, we meet a series of people involved in the ball culture. It kind of follows their lives, follows the development of the ball culture, and then tells a little bit about what happens to these people, and also talks about terminology and categories of the balls.
Yes. And as we said at the start, if you've watched an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race
Or Pose,
then you will be familiar with ball culture, ballroom culture, even if you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Ballroom culture was, of course, a safe space for these communities at a time when they are persecuted and sidelined, and has a long history in America. It goes back to the mid-19th century. It's a really urban phenomena because it can only happen in cities. And we've talked about molly houses before. You may have seen our documentary on YouTube. If not, please go and watch it. And how they're a product of urban spaces. And when urban spaces start to create, then you're able to get minorities and subcultures meeting other like-minded people and forming these events and stuff. So it goes back to the 19th century in America. Early in the 20th century, they're pretty integrated. So it's not just black people, it's white people as well. But then, of course, it splits off into this exclusively black and Latino, which is where we pick up for Paris is Burning. And what an interesting snapshot of New York at a time and a place, wasn't it?
It really was. There was so much footage of New York in the late 80s. Really evoked the grittiness of New York. It took the sheen off it. All the films that we've grown up with paint New York or can paint New York in a really kind of like positive, wonderful, colourful, vibrant light.
A very white experience in films.
Well,
New York is very different, isn't it, to what these communities experience of New York?
Yeah, exactly. And what I thought was really interesting about this is how the Talking Heads painted that picture of what you saw in mainstream culture, American culture at the time, was exclusively white. They talk about Dynasty and the Colbys at this time, so that really kind of solidifies it in a narrow window of time, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And also, this was the time of the corporate greed is good culture, where predominantly white people were skimming the wealth of everyday Americans.
Yeah.
In the financial district of New York, like, it was not exclusively white, we have to say, but predominantly white.
Yeah.
Culture was predominantly white. Everything you saw in movies and TV. So the Talking Heads kind of described this culture as their way of appearing rich, successful, famous.
Stuff that's denied them.
But this is their chance these evenings to go and be the exclusive people.
Yeah. And one of the queens talks about, quite explicitly says, everyone wants to live and look as a white person lives because they know their experience as a white person is so very different to theirs. And as you said, white culture is everywhere. And there are very few aspirational figures of colour within popular culture, which is why Dominique Devereaux in Dynasty was such a massive deal, because you have a black woman who has got everything. She's got the wealth, she's got agency, so she was groundbreaking. Diane Carroll, God love her, but that was sparse. The rest of the culture is mainly white. One of the queen says, black people have had everything taken away from them in the last 400 years, and they've had to learn to survive in a different way. In ballroom, if you've captured the white look and the white way of dressing and you pull it off authentically, then it is a marvel.
Yes.
It's iconic, to use the terminology of ballroom. So already within the context of this documentary, there's a real clear divide, a real clear subculture, and why it's such a strong formed and bonded subculture, I guess.
Yeah. What I found interesting, they interviewed with one young black gay guy, And he said that he'd had a conversation with his father about being gay. And his father had said to him, if you're black and you're gay, you're going to have to be stronger than you can ever imagine. They were considered to be, if we talk about class and hierarchy, they were considered to be on the lower end of the spectrum, wasn't it? That's just a fact. That's the way society viewed them.
Yeah.
So going into these ballrooms was an escape for them, was a place where they could feel accepted.
Yeah, and it's acceptance is born out in the houses you get. So drag queens will form houses that become families for the dispossessed, the unloved, the shunned, you know, and here you get your rainbow family. So you're supported, you are loved, and you are made to feel like you belong somewhere, which must have been a lifeline for so many people. And these houses are still running today, you know. And so we meet Pepper LaBeija, who's the mother of the House of LaBeija, which is one of the big houses in the ballroom scene.
Who was, can I just interject, fucking amazing.
Yeah.
She wasn't portrayed as a tragedy hero, but...
There's an element of sadness behind all these people because they've all been shunned by their families or kicked out by their families. But their stories are all about overcoming that, aren't they?
Yeah.
And Pepper, she talks about the fantasy of being a superstar, of being a legend. It's one of the appeals of this. But she also talks about how some of her children, because she's the house mother, and some of her children, when they come to houses, you know, they don't have accommodation, they don't have food, you know, they're in dire straits. But here we have a space where you can
feel safe and loved.
Yeah, without anybody judging you, and just feel included in that. And Pepper, she has boobs. We meet a lot of what we'd call today trans women.
Yeah.
At the time were labelled transvestites, I suppose. But for a lot of them, it's wanting to get a sex change to become fully a woman. But Pepper is unashamedly a man.
Yes.
She's got a dick. She says, I've got my dick. I'm not changing it. I've got my boobs, you know.
Yeah.
So already at this point, there's a real flirtation and a dance, if you like, with gender expectations and bodily expectations, and also being unapologetic with it.
Yes.
You know, which is such a powerful message. And God, you know, watching this 35 years later, it's a message which needs to be reinforced even more than it did in 1990.
Well, I thought that was really interesting, and it was kind of current and brought it to the forefront. Here you have someone like Pepper who's saying that she would never get a full transition, whereas there are other characters that we'll talk about later, like Venus, who was fully wanting to go down that route. So it kind of presented both sides of these arguments, but it wasn't pigeonholing people in a negative light. It was all about the individual and what it felt to them, which I think is a good lesson that we should all consider these days. Like, it's down to the individual how they want to.
Mind your business.
Yeah.
You know? But interesting, Pepper made a really interesting point, which I think speaks to the position of women, because she says some of the drag queens might get a sex change because they're treated badly as drag queens, but she says when you get a vagina, you're then treated as a woman, which probably is worse, because you're definitely a second-class citizen by that point, you know?
Yeah. As somebody who is still trying to make sense of the trans argument and what's going on today, it really helped me to kind of understand all different points of view from the trans community. A world where today, as we're talking about Pride Month, there are such polarizing opinions of trans people, from the extreme anti-trans to the militant pro-trans, that it's really easy to forget in this day and age that there are hundreds and thousands of trans people out there who don't engage in one extreme or the other, just wanting to live their lives quietly just to be like everybody else.
Exactly.
It was really interesting to see all these opinions coming 35 years ago.
Yeah. We also meet one of the older queens called Dorian Corey, and she gave a really interesting insight. The documentary is set clear at a time when the drag ball culture is changing. And she talks about by the 1970s, drag queens were starting to want to look like movie stars, but these days it was more the drag queens want to look like models.
Yes. She was saying that it's kind of diversified now, isn't it? They want to look like supermodels, but there are lots of other categories that people can explore. So
Yeah.
it's kind of exploded from her era in the 60s when you wanted to look like Vegas showgirls with feathers, like as what we would consider to be kind of like an old school drag queen.
Yeah.
That we probably saw in the 90s when we were going out there. Like flamingos in Blackpool. All feathers, sequins, glitz and everything. But come the late 80s in New York, which obviously was quite far advanced to what was going on elsewhere, it was more about the supermodel look.
Yes. But also, interestingly, very 80s in that she says it's not about what you create in the ball scene anymore. It's about what you've acquired. That real 80s corporate, that greed, that acquisitiveness of the 80s is really prevalent in this film. I think it's really telling that you've got to have new labels and all of that label shopping comes about in the 80s. You know, it's about showing what you've got, very obvious trappings of wealth. What used to be considered vulgar is now the norm. In fact, the desired state to be. Super 80s. It's super Reaganomics, this documentary. It's right positioned in the middle of all that.
It's talking about what you can acquire rather than create.
Yes.
There was a segment of the film devoted to the term mopping, which was
shoplifting.
You don't go to the fabric store, buy your materials and create things. You go to the high end
and nick them.
Label stores and nick clothes.
Well, if it's good enough for Winona Ryder.
But and then even when they were showing people in these acquired, mopped outfits, there was still kind of a little bit of disdain from some of the queens, like they've mopped that, they haven't made it, kind of thing. So there was that kind of disparity going on as well, which I thought was really interesting. Let's just talk a little bit more about the houses and the people we meet. There were different houses. There was Pepper, who was the mother of the House of Labatia. There was the House of Pendavis. There was the House of Extravaganza. All these houses with all the people who were assigned to each house competed, and it was quite fierce competition between the houses to win these trophies, which were gigantic, by the way.
Yes.
Loved extravagant trophies. So we should talk about categories as well. There were categories like luscious bodies, schoolboys and schoolgirls, town and country, executive realness, butch queen first time in drag at a ball, and high fashion evening wear. So the realness is a way of saying you accurately represent what you're trying to portray.
Yeah, the realness is one of the key things about this, because again, it's about living your authentic self and being able to live your authentic self. And one of the interviewees says, when you're queer, you monitor everything you do. And we've talked about this before, that you constantly have to be on the lookout for any little tics or signs or body language which is going to mark you out as queer. And you learn how to do it as a kid.
You play straight, don't you?
Yes, you straight act.
Yeah.
And realness comes from when you're able to authentically pass off as straight. So you don't give anything away. And realness is to look as much as possible like a straight counterpart or a real woman. It's not a takeoff. It's not satirizing. It's to authentically achieve this look of what you're trying to do. And you can then be confident in that realness without worrying about prejudice.
Yeah.
And one of the trans women talks about, you've achieved it if you can get home and there's no blood on you because you haven't been beaten up or attacked for being a trans woman. Realness, you hear it all the time in RuPaul, it's achieving this state of, you've absolutely nailed it. And you're judged in these balls, aren't you? So there's a table with judges, category is blah, blah, blah. You get people walking or doing the mute or voguing to whatever, and then they're marked out of 10. Then you might win that massive trophy if you're lucky enough.
It was great. And the way this was filmed, it really felt as though you were in the room with them. You were part of this ball experience. Yeah. Some of the contestants just looked absolutely amazing.
Wasn't it lovely? There was such a huge variety of body shapes, of types. There wasn't one particular. So you had large girls, you had small girls, you had all kinds of people, all of them welcomed within this space and just, applauded and lauded within this space. It was really lovely.
It wasn't all hearts and flowers for everybody. There were arguments, but the competition was so fierce.
Well, let's talk about cattiness, because that's one of the things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Reading and shade. Yeah. And is it amazing that these terms have become common parlance now? Because, and I was thinking back to Polari, that secret language that the gays used to use in the 60s. Here we have their own kind of language. And again, like Polari, elements of it have trickled into our common usage. Lots of ballroom terminology is now in common usage. So if you're throwing shade at someone, it means you're
subtly,
passive-aggressively, saying negative things about them. And it's not reading, which is overtly taking the piss.
Just insulting somebody.
Yes, but in a clever, funny way.
Yeah.
Whereas shade is a lot more subtle. So,
dig.
for example, oh, Dave, nice to see you've made an effort today. That kind of stuff, In other words, you don't usually.
It was great.
No word of a lie.
Yes. It was great because, like you say, if we watched this in 1990, all this terminology would be completely new to us. This world would feel completely alien to us, as fabulous as it is and would draw us in.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have had a clue what it meant.
I love the fact now you get teenage girls and little girls talking about realness and, because they've seen RuPaul.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, everybody, drag queens are really evil for children. Come on. Can we take a side swerve and talk about Venus Extravaganza?
Let's do it. Venus, one of the main characters highlighted in this film.
Venus is very petite. She is a very light-skinned black woman who's able to pass pretty much as white, which is another whole thing we can talk about at some point, not today. She wants to be a woman. In her eyes, spoilt, rich white girls, which is what she's aspiring to be, get what they want. And she wants a sex change to make herself complete. That's what she feels like she needs to do. She hustles for sex occasionally. There is some nod to AIDS in this, but one of the things I loved about this is that AIDS did not cast a big shadow over this. These people were just having fun. Venus doesn't hustle as much as she did because of AIDS, but she talks about an experience where a man discovers that she's not a full woman and beats her up. And then it takes a really tragic turn, doesn't it?
Yeah, towards the end of the documentary, it kind of explores the danger involved in being in this community, at the dark side of hustling. Venus talks about how hustling is transactional. They get what they want, then she gets the money. They might buy her a dress or some shoes or give her some money and everything. So she's kind of very matter of fact about it. And you see that, for all intents and purposes, she looks pretty streetwise, but at the same time is putting herself in extremely vulnerable situations. And it does take a sinister turn, doesn't it?
Takes a tragic turn, because it turns out towards the end of the film you find out that Venus has been murdered.
Yeah, she's been strangled.
Yeah, they
in a
find
hotel
her
room.
in a hotel room. That storyline does get used in Pose. Just dreadful, and it speaks of the life expectancy of trans people is considerably lower than it is for the rest of the population because they get murdered. Awful. And even the house mum who talks about her being murdered says, well, this is just what it is. This is what you have to put up with. And actually the name Venus Extravaganza lives on, and her rainbow family and her real family, her blood family, became really close allies after her death. There's a kind of Greek chorus throughout the documentary. These two street kids. They're so streetwise, but they're 13 and 15 years old, and they've both been kicked out their homes. They don't have mums. They've come from broken homes. They've been kicked out of those broken homes. They've got hickeys on their neck. And as much as they are streetwise, cool, hustling, surviving, they're still little laddies, aren't they? They're still little boys, and you just wonder what happened to those two little boys, who, despite all their bravado and despite all their, they're clearly their support for each other, my heart just feared for them. So it's a very good documentary, as you say, looking at the inequalities of class and also what happens when you're at the bottom of the bottom, what can happen, and the struggle.
Let's look at something a bit more positive, which is voguing.
So there's a lot of voguing in this. Harlem, which is where a lot of this is set, it was the birthplace, and we all know what Vogue is. It's that stylized dance form.
It's expressive, it's performative, isn't it? It's kind of another way of emulating the fashion magazines of the time,
Yeah.
the posters that film stars struck, that supermodels you see in the magazines, and translating that into a formative dance.
Yeah. And we meet Willie Ninja,
Yes.
who is the best voguer, basically. Some of the voguing is astonishing, actually, isn't it? I mean, it's incredible what they can do with their bodies. Everybody likes to think they can vogue after Madonna obviously brings a vogue out, but you watch this film and you're like, nah, no.
I think it's probably a conversation for another day, whether Madonna culturally appropriated this dance and took it into the mainstream for herself.
Yeah.
When she made her video and then took it out on the world tour, she took 2 of the children from the House of Extravaganza with her on tour and showed them the world.
Yeah. Yes, I've seen one of the criticism levelled at Madonna is that the people she mentions are only white people. But unfortunately, Madonna's singing a song about mainly the magazine and the style of the dancing. And there were only white people on the cover of Vogue magazine.
And this is what the people in the houses, when they were voguing, were
emulating. Yeah.
Watching these people, watching them dancing, watching them voguing, watching them strut themselves up and down the catwalk in the balls and stuff, watching the costumes, watching the atmosphere. It was intoxicating, I thought. It was just so fabulous to see life represented in this fabulous glory.
Yeah. And Willie Ninja, who is the best voguer, wins all the competitions and stuff, he had a really interesting point. He said voguing is almost like a dance of fighting, but you're fighting through dance. So it's competition, but using your bodies as an expressive form to fight. He says it's a safe form of throwing shade, basically.
Yeah.
At people, and they were just incredible.
Yeah.
And he, at one point, you see him in one of his jobs is teaching straight women how to walk in heels and stuff, isn't it? You know, bless him. He's fucking great in this. You know?
He's great. And also he's great. It was referred to her before, Dorian Corey. She talks about the adulation and the applause you get from competing in these competitions. She said it's a real addictive high that won't hurt you. So she talks about it being an alternative away from the streets, away from the drugs, etc. I'm sure there were drugs flying around in these balls, but you just get this sense that this was a place where people could come to feel safe and express themselves.
Yeah. And she says if everyone went to a ball and did less drugs, the world would be a much happier place. And you kind of think, we could all just get a nice outfit on and walk up and down in front of people cheering, clap, and you'd be much happier.
So we meet somebody else, another fabulous trans woman.
Beautiful trans woman.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous. Octavia Saint Laurent. She aspires to be a mainstream model. She's got pictures of models on her wall.
Paulina is her favourite.
Who I'd never heard of before.
I knew her because she used to be a judge on America's Next Top Model.
Okay.
And she was a massive model in America.
Yeah, so in the late 80s, she was one of the models.
Yeah.
She's got loads of pictures of Paulina on a wall. She's want to meet her one day. I just think everything about her life is something that I aspire to. The money, fame, traveling around the world, etc. And then Octavia goes to a kind of a modeling casting call competition in relation to a department store, and Eileen Ford from Ford Models is there, and Octavia gets to meet supermodels and chat to them, and they're giving her advice and everything. And you kind of, because you're a fly on the wall and you just see her looking around, and you can feel her anxiety, and she's anxious about being in a space that isn't in her comfort zone. We don't really get to find out what happened to Octavia.
It's interesting as well, though, you know, her aspirations and Venus's aspirations, they all want the rich husband, the nice things. They want a heteronormative life.
Yes.
And it really struck me something Germaine Greer says in The Female Eunuch. Back in 1972, you know, The Female Eunuch is one of those groundbreaking feminist texts. She talks about, you know, that patriarchy does such a good job as in instilling certain demands on women, their behaviour, their appearance. You know, you have to look feminine, blah, blah, blah. She says that drag queens are our sisters as well, because they are also under the same pressures and the same expectations that patriarchy puts on straight women. And I thought, here we are. These women are wanting this heteronormative life, which is what patriarchy tells everybody. That's what you're supposed to have.
To do,
And it was like, gosh, even they can't escape the bloody pressures of it.
So, in conclusion, I think we are the problematic gays, and each week we take something and look at the problematic elements of it. But what did you think about this?
It's interesting because it's not problematic. And I think for Pride Month, actually, we're looking at cultures which have been considered problematic and looking at answers to that problematizing of those cultures by wider society. So this is not a problematic documentary at all.
For us.
For us, yeah. I'm sure for some people it would be.
With things like this, we look at things that could perhaps have been problematic upon release, but actually have since been reevaluated. And that's because society and culture has progressed, in inverted commas. They've become less problematic as time moves on. And I think this is one fine example of that.
Yes, very much so. So what would you rate it?
I would rate it 9 6-foot trophies out of 10.
Yeah, I would give it 9. I was going to do 6-foot trophies as well, but I will give it 9 Armani fur coats out of 10.
Did you make that Armani fur coat? Did you pinch it?
Pinched it.
Yeah, I do. You do strike me as the mopping kind.
Definitely a mopper.
Especially after that veggie volcano pizza last night. There'll be plenty of mopping up going on later.
I need more than a mop, I tell you. Got a water cannon. As we continue our Pride Month, what are we looking at next episode, Dave?
So we're going to be getting into our rainbow colour tele-TARDIS and whizzing forward from 1990 to 1999.
Yes.
And we're going to be looking at what is considered to be a queer cult classic movie from the USA called But I'm a Cheerleader.
Never seen it. Looking
Right.
forward to watching it.
Yes.
Never heard of it, actually, which is one of the joys of this podcast, discovering things I've never heard of.
Yes. We'll put a link to it in our socials. Stars Natasha Lyonne, who's currently on our screens with Poker Face, who was in Russian Doll, amongst many other films.
Yeah.
Queer icon herself.
Yes, indeed.
So yes, that's next week.
Right, I'm off to practice my Vogue moves in a pair of 6-inch heels. What are you doing?
I've got my ghetto blaster. I'm going to go down the docks and hang out with the lads.
Lovely. Enjoy.
I will, just because it's Pride Month and just 'cause I can.
Let's hang out.
Yes, but in the meantime,
Please like, subscribe, follow our socials, email us, get in touch. We love hearing from you.
yes, and please do leave us a review if you get a moment, because that really does help spread the word of the problematic gays.
It does. So until next time, Dave, au reservoir.
Au reservoir.